Search and rescue efforts in Hawaii growing more frantic as the death toll from the wildfires hits 96, with many still missing, and only 3% of the devastation has been searched so far. Fox and Friends weekend co-host Will Kane is live in Maui, along with former Hawaii Congresswoman and Fox News contributor Tulsi Gabbard. Will, I know you got on a plane right after the show yesterday. You landed a few hours ago, and you're there with the Congresswoman. Tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah, Ainsley, one of the reasons that I got on that plane so quickly is I was sitting there after Fox and Friends, and I got a text from this wonderful woman, Tulsi Gabbard, saying, "Hey, Will, you ought to get to Hawaii." And I said, "You know what? You're right." She said she was on her way. I said, "I'll be on my way as well." And here we are now, Tulsi, here in Kahului, Maui. You've been here for a day. You've made your way all the way over to West Maui. Tell me what you've seen and why it was so important for you to come back to Maui.
Yeah, well, I mean, I served in Congress for 8 years. The island of Maui was in my district. My heart has been with the people of Maui throughout this entire tragedy. I needed to come here and be there for them and show my support, but also tell their story. There's so much happening here that's not actually making it out into the news. The tragedy of every single life that's been lost, those who are still missing. We must continue to focus on finding every one of those people. There are also so many others who are struggling to survive and also looking for what happens tomorrow. And I just want to say that this community is so special. Even those who've lost their homes, who've lost everything but maybe their car and their phone, are stepping up to see how they can help their neighbor.
And you and I have talked about that, Tulsi. We have several acquaintances and friends, famous surfer Kai Lenny, and some just average citizens as well here on Maui who've all stepped up where they've seen gaps in the response. I'm talking about people flying helicopters and planes from here to the west side, boats. I know one of my friends is running his boat, the Gemini, from Ma'alea Harbor back to the west side. People are stepping up.
It's really incredible how during this time of need, the aloha spirit really shines through. There are a lot of community-led pods, they're calling them service pods, north of Lahaina, a community that has been cut off largely from the outside world, where media cameras are not being allowed in. Those who don't specifically have a home there are not being allowed in. They're standing up and getting support, food, medical, basic first aid, toiletries, those sorts of things, but they're setting them up in people's yards and their garages, trying to figure out, okay, there's a serious concern about looting and security. They are trying to stand up their own security patrols, walking through the neighborhoods at night. There is a feeling, though, that there's not enough communication. They're not getting word from the county or the state or the federal government or FEMA about what's going on, what's available to them. This is a completely community-driven effort. They are helping each other. They are not, unfortunately, seeing that support coming from the government yet.
You know, really quickly, Tulsi, you mentioned it's hard for the media to get through, so there's big gaps in information. And there are people that are concerned about what happens next. A lot of focus on what's happened and who we're still recovering and who we're still looking for. But I know a lot of locals are wondering, what happens to my home? What happens to my land? What happens to Lahaina?
It's, given the history of this place and given how a lot of generational land has been developed, whether it's into hotels or other things, there's serious concern that this beautiful historic site of Lahaina that was once the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii back in the day, 9-10 generations of Native Hawaiians have lived there, that this land will be acquired or taken over and developed into something that causes them to lose not only their homes, but their history and so much of the culture here on Maui. And this is a very real concern today. Even as people are focused on the emergency of today, it is not at all lost on them that they are concerned about how to rebuild in a way that honors the Native Hawaiian people and Hawaii.
And I think we both believe that's why information becomes such an important resource, why we need to be over there, why we need to be telling these stories. Thank you for inviting me over here. I'm so glad we talked. I'm so glad you came out here tonight to be on Fox and Friends, and just appreciate who you are for Hawaii and for America.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.